I don't think that my church is actually particularly controversial.
I have already condemned in unequivocal terms the statements of Reverend Wright that have caused such controversy and in some cases pain.
This is a church that I have been a member of for 20 years. This is a well-established, typical, historically African-American church on the south side of Chicago with a wonderful set of ministries. And what I have been hearing and had been hearing in church was talk about Jesus and talk about faith and values and serving the poor.
For some, nagging questions remain. Did I know him to be an occasionally fierce critic of American domestic and foreign policy? Of course.
Did you know that he had made these statements before the videotape appeared?
You know, frankly, I didn't. I wasn't in church during the time that these statements were made. Now,
did I ever hear him make remarks that could be considered controversial while I sat in the church? Yes.
I did not hear such incendiary language myself personally, either in conversations with him or when I was in the pew.
Did I strongly disagree with many of his political views? Absolutely.
Had I heard those in the church, I would have told Reverend Wright that, that I profoundly disagreed with them. They didn't reflect my values and they didn't reflect my ideals.
Just as I'm sure many of you have heard remarks from your pastors, priests, or rabbis with which you strongly disagree.
And had I heard or known about some of these statements, I would have been very clear about it.
But the remarks that have caused this recent firestorm weren't simply controversial. They weren't simply a religious leader's efforts to speak out against perceived injustice.
Do you repudiate the man? Do you repudiate the comments? Do you repudiate both?
No, I would not repudiate the man. As I said, this is somebody who I have known for 17 years, helped bring me to Jesus and helped bring me to church.
Instead, they expressed a profoundly distorted view of this country.
Do you not know, though, that, I mean, a couple days after 9/11, he said, this was America's chickens coming home to roost, a result of what he called American terrorism around the world? I mean, you may not have been there, but you must have heard that he had said these things.
A view that sees white racism as endemic.
And so many of the sermons that I heard were extraordinarily powerful. One of them, which I've written about, titled The Audacity of Hope, is one that I helped inspire my convention speech. And
a view that sees the conflicts in the Middle East as rooted primarily in the actions of stalwart allies like Israel.
So no one in the church ever said to you, man, last week you missed this sermon, Reverend Wright said this, or, I mean, I think I read in your books that you used to listen to tapes of Reverend Wright when you were at Harvard Law School. I did. So you had no idea?
I did not.
Now, some will see this as an attempt to justify or excuse comments that are simply inexcusable.
This is somebody who was a former U.S. Marine, who is a biblical scholar, who's preached and taught at theological seminaries all across the country. I have to confess that those are not statements that I ever heard when I was sitting in the pews at this church.
And this helps explain, perhaps, my relationship with Reverend Wright. As imperfect as he may be, he has been like family to me. He strengthens my faith, officiated my wedding, and baptized my children.
You can walk out of a church. I mean, you can go up to a pastor and say, this is wrong.
And as I said, Anderson, if I had heard any of these statements, I probably would have walked out, and I probably would have told Reverend Wright that they were wrong.
I can no more disown him than I can disown the black community.
Your campaign saying this afternoon it had no plans to ask Reverend Wright to step down. Obviously, that has changed. Did he step down tonight, or did you ask him to leave?
You know, I think there was a recognition that he's on the verge of retirement. He's taking a sabbatical, and that it was important for him to step out of the spotlight in this situation.
And yet to wish away the resentments of white Americans, to label them as misguided or even racist, without recognizing they are grounded in legitimate concerns, this too widens the racial divide.
And so our belief was that the most appropriate way to handle it was to be very clear about my strong condemnation of the statements, but to continue to be a part of the church.